The following program is rated TVMA. This program may contain strong opinions, explicit language, and possible adult themes. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the Smoke Free Radio Network or its affiliates. This program is meant for mature adult audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Hey folks, P. Basardo here, and you're listening to the Smoke Free Radio Network.
That was interesting.
Good evening, everybody. Mike Peterson coming back with another show for Vaping in the Mic. An odd kind of thing, and I'm just going to check one piece to make sure that everything is good so I don't have any kind of echoes running around. Odd piece. After I got done with last week's show, and I want to thank everybody that had the time and the capability to record their audio sections with me. I can see a couple of the guys that are in here. Thanks to Kevin and Austin and Jay and Mr. Bill Tarling. But after I did that show, I turned around and decided to kind of revamp what Vaping in the Mic looks like. And it turned out decently well so far. I'm not going to say great, but it's working okay so far. But this evening, you hear her voice, but you don't get to see her that often. Sometimes on photographs or when people are making any kind of a post. But this evening, we have Lindsey Stroud. Now, she is from the Heartland Institute. She is with Tobacco Harm Reduction for Life, at THR for Life. And she's taking some time this evening. She's just back from, I'm going to ask her in a minute, she's just back from traveling herself. But she's here with us live. And, Lindsey, I appreciate you joining me this evening.
Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
This would be kind of awesome. Now, where did you tell me that you just came in from? You just got back to Chicago from?
Jefferson City. Barely. Our flight was originally canceled. We were supposed to leave at 12:30. We were able to get here at like 6 a.m., got in at 7. O'Hare was probably the deadest I've ever seen it. Everything was canceled.
Wow. So
yeah.
you have been out and you have been trucking and crazy kind of busy as you've been going along.
Yeah, it's kind of been insane. It's 2019 session.
Wow. Now, there's a couple of things. I'm aware of THR for Life, but what do you do with that particular group?
THR for Life, so I'm a board member, and we are 501c3, and we are in the business to educate, and we're working on some projects right now. I know that we're doing a big Tobacco 21. We're looking at that, trying to do a fight against that. And we're also looking at some ways to just educate vapors, get more information out there. And now we do support everything, well, educate smokers. We do support all forms of tobacco harm reduction. So if you like smokeless tobacco or snus, if you like NRT, I mean, anything that's tobacco harm reduction, we totally promote. And just trying to make sure that the information's good. I know that they've done a lot of work. A lot of them are based out of Minnesota, so they've done a lot of work with the T21 out there, especially last year. And it's still going to be a big fight this year, especially around all the states. So,
wow, there was a time that it took me to adjust my brain between harm reduction advocates and vaping advocates, because for a while I'm thinking, okay, we're after the same thing. And it started with Kevin Crowley when I was talking with him, and he's saying, no, I support people that want to try these alternatives. And I'm like, dude, what the hell is your problem? But it didn't dawn on me until we had a conversation about actual harm reduction. It's not just about a particular product.
Exactly.
So it took me time to wrap my brain around that. Once I did, Kevin and I became really good friends, and he's a wealth of information. So to have you here and able to talk about that from a little bit of a different perspective is awesome. Now, you are also part of the Heartland Institute.
Yep, I am.
What do you do there?
I'm a state government relations manager. The easiest way that I explain it is I write research papers and tell politicians what's up. But I follow about 18 states, that I'm in charge of. Maintain relationships with the legislative forum members. I track legislation, and then I also am the policy person for tobacco and vaping related issues. So I've been keeping a track on all the legislation, and that's not easy to do since we don't have a legislation tracker. We've got me and going on every state's website, and I write research and commentaries, which is just an analysis on the legislation, one page, and it's easy, and it's usually always against, because there's really hardly any good vaping regulation that comes out. I've provided testimony. I've testified in a couple states. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago to testify against Tobacco 21. I was trying to go to Illinois earlier this week, but they canceled the hearing for Tobacco 21. I also write op-eds that we try to get published nationally and locally. And I've been in the Hill, Town Hall, American Spectator, I think, just talking about tobacco and vaping issues and kind of attacking FDA and how they are attacking it right now.
Wow. Now, here is another one. You also do your own podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Voices of Vapors.
I do, yes. I do. Jewel listens to it, apparently. At least they've told me that. The Voices of Vapors is... it was a couple years ago when I started doing the podcast, and then I kind of got really busy, and then I decided to bring it back late last summer, and just to provide this outlet to show policymakers the adult voices of and how important these devices have been for people. I've had guys on I had Greg Connolly on, I've had Mark Anton, Tony from the VTA. I also had the congressman on. I'm still trying to get more legislators on there, at least ones that are, supportive, or even if I could get a hostile legislator on there to kind of explain why they're against it, I think that'd be fantastic. But I think it provides the information that I don't think a lot of people are getting when they're reading these alarmist news stories about youth and vaping. They're not seeing the business owners who, first-time business owners who started a business because of vaping, or the people who were smoking for 40 years and their COPD, symptoms have stopped because, they chose to vape instead of smoke. So I like it. I think it's fun. It gets me away from my desk for about an hour a day. So can't beat that.
Now, you and I had spoken just a little bit earlier about kind of stealth vaping. Now, I'm sitting here with a different device. Now, Dimitri will be proud of me, since this one does not pop and it doesn't make a lot of noise, and I was not paying attention to my mic noise, which I should have. But you've got one that's even smaller, just like that right there. And now, when you go around and you talk to people, and you're advocating THR for life, do you find that people would have more of an inclination to gravitate to a pod system like that versus something that is either a tank, an RDA, or a mod?
I think and that's the coolest thing about vaping. It's so personal. When I first got into vaping, I was a smoker. I'm a dual user. FDA hates it, but I'm significantly cut back on my cigarettes. And it was a pod device, but I'd been given the mods and they were just too confusing for me and having to change everything up. So I think the pod system is really good for people like me, but I think there are people who like doing, changing it up. Like they like, it's like guys who like fixing cars. I kind of, it's kind of like changing your oil when you have to change, take the carburetor and everything out of it and put I'm blanking on it, but the tanks. So I think the pod system's really good for getting people who might not know about vaping and what it is, because it's an easy to use, it's simple, it's not confusing. I think though it's important for people to go into vape shops and see all the other devices that that's available, because they might find a product that they actually really do like that's more than just the pod, and once they actually learn how to use it, they find themselves really enjoying it. I think it could be a little scary if you just go in and you don't know what it is and everything, but I think it's why vape shops and the retailers are so imperative business to explain it and show the people how to use it.
Mm-hmm. It's what I hear when I talk to a lot of people in vape stores in different areas, different walks of life, that Juul has become, and I will say Juul because it's what's on a lot of people's mind. You could say Juul, Juno, Fix, any pod system that is a stick and a small pod, other pod devices that have come out. People seem to have an easier time, some, in transitioning to a smaller device like that they can put in their pocket, carry around with them, if they need it. But it's the same thing that I've noticed. Other people have only replaced one for one, and they're going through a pod a day or, a lot.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how they can afford it.
To me, it is like, okay, so you're using a pod a day, but you're not smoking? Hands down. That's it.
Yep.
You're not smoking. That's the whole thing.
That's the goal. Yep. Well, that's what I say as a dual user. For every less cigarette that I do not smoke, that's a win for me. So, I mean, I think the pod system. I mean, I personally think Juul's got such a big markup because they're so easy to lose. I mean, my boyfriend's lost like 20 of them. I think not 20. I think he told me today he's bought 5 in the past 6 months because he keeps losing them and then finding them later.
Yep.
Which is good. That's a good selling point. I mean, that's a good, hey, people have to replace them. Hey, it's good for your business.
And that's the whole thing. If they are not smoking, then they're doing something better, less harmful.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the whole name of the ball game. You and I spoke, again, we hit on something that there has been, when Juul came out on the market, it was a mass explosion of change. It equates to, when people ever hear the word paradigm shift, that was a paradigm shift. It fundamentally changed how the public viewed vaping.
Yep.
They went from these big things that people hold in their hands and big fat clouds to these smaller things. But I've noticed, and I think Bill Tarling or somebody had said the very same thing. Have you noticed in any kind of circulation in news that they show somebody holding a pod like a Juul and yet blowing a cloud that had to come out of a higher wattage device?
I have not seen that, but I need to go
God.
check that out. That is so misleading because you can't. I have a Juul. You can't do big clouds in them. Wow.
You can direct along some of Juul, but at 50 milligram, even at 30, you can't. You're going to hack your lungs out.
Yeah.
But they show Juul, and some people have pointed it out, and this big, humongous cloud that had to come out of a 120 watt device.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's amazing.
It upsets me because I keep seeing all these newscasts, everything. Everybody's coming back around going, oh, yeah, no, check this out. And we're going to mislead yet again in a different direction.
It is very misleading. I'm waiting for it to get published. I got an op-ed. I really hate that the powers that be are calling this an epidemic. We're in the middle of the third wave of the opioid epidemic, and that's the fentanyl. Parents are burying their kids because of opioids that the FDA approved in the 90s for moderate to severe pain, and it kind of just exploded. I mean, and so what I think it diminishes these parents who've buried their kids. When you're sitting there saying there's a vaping epidemic among youth, no parent has buried their kid because of a Juul stick, okay, or a vaping device, and they won't. So I don't like the alarmism. I think that it's a big disservice to the whole industry. As you can see with Scott Gottlieb on Twitter, that we're gonna face a threat if this youth access. But at the same time, all the legislation in place that they're putting in to deter youth usage, none of them is putting any penalty on kids using these products. It's all on the retailers, it's not on the parents. And it's like, okay, you don't want kids to use it, but you're not sitting here and putting any laws or restrictions in place that would actually deter them from using it. It makes me so mad when I just start thinking about it. And I think the youth usage is a big issue, but people fail to realize that even the numbers of kids vaping are still significantly less than the numbers of high schoolers that were smoking in the 90s, the highest. And I think it was like 33% of high school seniors in like 1996 were smoking. I think in the past 30 days, or might have been every day or something. Even their heightened numbers that they have is way less than that with youth vaping. And their studies are really shoddy too, because you can't distinguish whether these are kids who are like at a party passively smoking or vaping, a Juul, or if they're actually like sitting there in the bathroom every day, juuling. That's the epidemic that you're getting kind of from all the news media outlets. And it's kind of, pardon my French, is bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I was allowed to say that or anything, but it just makes me so mad.
It is 100% true. There is no doubt about it. I tell you what, folks, I'm noticing a little bit of lag in some of our videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run our sponsor slot, because without our sponsors, Smoke Free Radio could not do what it does. And in the meantime, I'm going to kind of rework things here on the backside, and I will be right back.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio, reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida, and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
Now, I know that people can hear me, and I know that you're looking at a blank screen right now, but I apologize right now. I'm trying to get Zoom back up and running so that we don't have any issues, and the minute that I can do that, I'm going to have Lindsey get right back here, but it's going to take me just a moment. It takes me a little bit longer than what you might be able to check out. So if you would just bear with me while I do this. And as soon as she jumps back in, we'll be able to get right back into our conversation. Right now, you're seeing a little bit of something that's a little bit odd, but I promise it'll get a lot better here in just a moment. So in the meantime, there she is. Now I'm going to sit and take a minute because I have to go through and change everything. Now I tell you what, Lindsey, since I've got you here, I'm going to go ahead and just have, if you would, in a minute we're going to be talking about, see, and my brain even blew a gasket because of all this. In a minute we're going to be talking about an Excel spreadsheet, and things that are going on. If you would, can you give me a brief preview of what we're going to see on that?
Yeah, so I've been, like I said, we don't have legislation tracking. So my easiest way that I've seen to track legislation is kind of putting it on a spreadsheet. So I think I've got, how many states I have in here? I don't forget. It's over 140 bills that I found that are related to Clean Indoor Air Acts, regulations on vaping products, flavor bans, T21, couple states I'll mention later, V21, and then also just actually New York's got like explosion warnings. So it's an Excel sheet. It's got the state, the year, because I know New Jersey's actually has bills that they transferred over from last year to this year. It's got the House bill number, or the bill number, whether it's a House bill, Senate bill. It's actually got a little bit of a mini description, and it's got a location on it. It does need to be updated. I'm going to do that this Sunday. It's what I do on my days off, is still do work. But it's a lot. That campaign, like, the campaign, the alarmism has gotten a lot of state legislators that are putting forth all these, regulations, taxes, prohibitions on these products. So, and I think it's also on the Excel sheet, it does have the link to the actual bill in the state website. So
When
I've been working on.
When I took a look at it, I just about went, oh shit. Because it's listing all the states, not just a state. It's not just talking about Ohio or Illinois or New York. It's listing all of them.
Yep.
And when I took a look at this, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. It scared the hell out of me. And I'm not sure that people really see how much is going on or what is really happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been doing, because I've been following vaping since I got into Heartland in 2016. So, and I've been doing this Excel sheet for each year. And I can tell you this is probably about 3 times the size of what they've been in the past years. And you still have other states that still haven't even started yet. I'm sure there's going to be more legislation that's going to come up. And I mean, it just seems like every day there's a bill that comes out that, because of this alarmism and this youth vaping. Because if you look at it, everything now, that all this stuff that they're doing and all these acts to protect the youth from vaping is what they're doing.
And it's true. It is massively. Now, before I even switch over to it, I'm going to switch over, and you were able to see what I had on my screen before. Now it's just you and I kind of talking about this, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Pardon me. Is there anything in particular that you want people to look at?
Well, if you're in a specific state, reach out to me. I will figure out a way to share the file. I mean, because definitely, if you're in a, South Carolina, Rhode Island, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Vermont, Washington, West Virginia, Wyoming, and that's just from the bottom, Oklahoma, New York, New Mexico, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Montana, Minnesota, Michigan, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Hawaii, Connecticut, Colorado, California, and Arizona have all that I've identified so far. You need to be paying attention because these bills are going fast. I was in Washington State for T21. I know Virginia's Senate passed Tobacco 21, and that came from Republicans. And it's Virginia, Marlboro country. I was really shocked to see that. But they also put an amendment in it that, like, military, active duty military can start exempt from it. But you need to be paying attention to what's going on at the state level, and you need to be educating, especially if you're a business owner or if you're a 40-year-old smoker that quit smoking because of vaping. You need to let your legislator know that, because all they're seeing right now is they're seeing the New York Times. Well, we had a good New York Times article yesterday saying that it was an effective cessation tool, but all the other alarmist articles that they're seeing and they're very ill-informed about it. So I think that's imperative. Big pieces to watch. You got a bill in Iowa and you got a bill in Nebraska that will raise the vaping age to 21, but you can still smoke cigarettes at 18. I know James Jarvis said with some work, when a city council in Ohio tried to do that. Then I saw a state was trying to do it. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Nebraska was the first one. And then I was like, well, maybe it's just, you got a unicameral legislator. You guys don't know what you're doing anyways. But then when Iowa put one out too, I was like, oh, wow, look at the Midwest. You guys are whack jobs right now. So, I mean, the more harmful. And I think that once again, it comes down to the disinformation that spreads so easily through alarmist news media, and you don't hear about, from what I know, there's about 10 million vapors in the United States. 3 million of them apparently have used vaping devices to effectively quit smoking cigarettes. You don't hear those numbers ever. All you're hearing is youth vaping and you increased by 75%. And so, and once again, like I mentioned earlier, this legislation, it doesn't do anything but restrict adults' access to these products. So it's not, and if you want to get youth to not vape, fine them. I'm not for fines or penalties, but at the same time, I'm not for little kids ruining an industry that's saving people's lives.
No, and I'm going through and just looking at this thing, and the only thing that I'm hitting and highlighting right now, while people are looking at this, are just flavor bans. Here's a menthol ban. Here's another flavor ban. You know, if I started highlighting T21's taxes and flavor bans, I mean, this in New Jersey, oh my God, they've got 2 menthol bans, 2 flavor bans in New Jersey alone.
Yep.
New Mexico. Now you've got New Mexico highlighted in red.
Yeah, those are, so actually New Mexico, so the Senate bills that all came out, those got tabled indefinitely on January 16th. So, but they still have the House bills that have went through, or they're not tabled yet. I do need to go check it out. I've been crazy busy. I got to update, but I will have an update of this. But yeah, they did. The red on there is things that have already been tabled.
New York. New York is huge.
New York is ridiculous.
We saw earlier that there were people, and thankfully Matthew Elliott and a lot of other people, Greg Connolly, went way out to the island of New York. I forget, and that's horrible for me. I don't remember exactly where it was. But it turned around, and you're seeing all of this garbage happening for a flavor ban, that was going to be in this little area.
Yeah.
And they were bringing kids in. And they just did this yesterday in New York. There was a minor sitting and testifying in court or in an open hearing. This kid does not pay taxes. This kid does not vote, can't drink, can't buy anything. Why on God's green earth is this minor playing such a pivotal role in something that is so huge?
Because it's great. It's a great campaign strategy for them to use. Bring the kids. Somebody told me that in California, actually, at one of the hearings, they had little kids of a former smoker turned vapor that testified and was like, "Mom smells so much better now. We like her vaping now." And I think that's the best thing to do is bring your kids. If they're going to bring kids, you bring your kids. If your kids have noticed the difference with your vaping and versus smoking cigarettes, absolutely, I have no problem using them. But I don't like the kids on there. And I went in Indiana last year and testified, and a little kid had to testify in front of me, and I was so nervous. I think that kid did better testifying than I did. And they always get a standing ovation and everything because it's a little kid. But you're right. I could understand a 17-year-old going there, talking about it. A 10-year-old, I don't understand at all. There should be no reason whatsoever. And also, where are the parents at? When it comes to this, is my biggest thing. When I got caught smoking in high school, my mom and dad checked my bag coming and going, and they would steal my cigarettes actually and smoke them. Where are the parents at? Why aren't they doing this? I mean, and why are they looking at the government to parent their kids? I mean, why would you even have kids to do it?
That was a huge, huge issue. Now, when it first came out, they were talking about a school that was going to start levying a fine against kids, $170 if you were caught with a vapor product. And I jumped all over it, and I'm like, this is just fucking fantastic. They're going to do something about it. Until I listened, and I will tell everybody, hands down, I listened to Dimitri talk about what's wrong with you people that are thinking that. And he explained why. Are they finding the kids that are bringing cigarettes? No. Are they finding any of the kids that are bringing Adderall? No. Are they finding the kids that have Coke or meth or any junk or pills that they crush? And no.
They don't actually. The only thing they kind of find kids on is minors and possession laws. There are some states, though, that fine them for possession of cigarettes. I know Illinois' Tobacco 21 bill, when I was going through it, actually removes the penalties that would be on it, and they're only going to be penalized if they are attempt to purchase it with a fake ID or something like that. But the other penalties that they had on it, they just removed it from it. But that's the campaign for tobacco-free kids doesn't want you finding them is the big one that pushes that. They don't want fines on kids, but I mean, I think fine. If you're under 18 and you're caught with anything that you're not supposed to have, you should be subject to some type of penalty, whether it's a fine, whether it's 20 hours community service, or even license suspensions. I mean, teenagers they love to drive around, have their freedom. You know, you get caught with a jewel, fine, your license is suspended for 3 months.
There's been a lot of talk about that. And believe it or not, a couple of months ago, when this really T21 really started to grab traction, I took the time to go and talk with a former police chief in our area. And he was known not only in our area, but in the state and nationally. He very, very outstanding kind of person. And we had an hour discussion about T21 and why police predominantly don't do anything about it. They're understaffed, undermanned. You know, the cops only have so much money in their budget to do things. So are they going to patrol and make sure that crime is not happening, or are they going to start looking for the kids that are smoking? He goes, which one do you want your tax dollars going to? He said, you can't have both.
Yep.
I said, okay, fine. For shits and grins, let's take a moment and say, I want to bust all of those kids that are standing out there smoking. He goes, now you've created a new problem. What the hell are you talking about? He goes, now the policeman, the patrolman, has to take their time. They have to escort the kid to juvenile detention center because you are going to do something about it. So you have paperwork and all the people that are doing the paperwork. Then they get into the court system. He said the court system is already overwhelmed. They can't handle that. I said, you're kidding. He goes, the best case scenario, what you're going to see is a judge will go, sir, patrolman, I love your enthusiasm. Please don't do that. We can't handle it.
Yep. Yeah, it's very true. And I look at Illinois again on that example as far as lost revenue as well that you're going to have with I think Illinois, when they estimated it last year, was going to be $41 million that they would have lost annually. So yeah, there's not enough revenue when you actually enforce this, and it really just seems like T21 kind of just punishes manufacturers and retailers mostly, and they're the ones who are going to have to be forced in compliance, and they're the ones who are going to be fined thousands of dollars if a minor, purchases, a vaping product or a cigarette. And it's really unfortunate because I don't think that, I don't even know if T21 would work if you think about rebellious teenagers. Okay. So, you're going to make it like more of a rebellious, type of risky behavior or whatever. So when you increase it to 21, but I also don't think that it works. I mean, kids can procure alcohol, and you look at Monitoring the Future, 56% of high school seniors in the last year had drank alcohol at least once in the past month. How they're not, how they get that? You got to be 21 in every single state to get alcohol. So they're just going to use the same social sources, and it's unfortunate. And really, the state's just going to lose tax revenue. Is really what's all going to come down to.
Now, from where you sit, last week, the part that wrapped up the show was Phil Basardo he had done another show with Dimitri, and I asked him, can I use this clip? And he goes, oh yeah, use it. And he spoke about everything that is being lobbied against the vaping industry is all about money.
Yep.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I think that one of the big arguments I use on my Tobacco 21 is that states are not using tobacco funding for cessation efforts or for education or prevention. And the more I go through some of these tobacco money, I mean, Illinois gave their master in the year 2000. They used part of their master settlement agreement, or funding, to give a property tax relief. I know in Washington State, 100% of their tobacco settlement funds and their taxes are earmarked to the general fund. And every year, when you look at, they are spending less and less and less on tobacco control efforts, and they're using these to fill government coffers pretty much. New York has their pensions are invested in tobacco companies. California there's about 18 states that have bonded out their tobacco payments. So they actually need smokers to still keep smoking for them to meet their debt obligation. All the while, especially effing California, is telling you not to smoke and everything. And so, but yeah, you do stand to lose a bunch of money if, everybody can quit. If everybody was a smoker today, 39 million went and decided I'm going to go vape, or even if they all went to, the less popular cigarettes because they're not part of the master settlement agreement, yeah, the states would lose a butt ton of money. I think that on average, every state's getting probably about 150 million in tobacco settlements each year. That's not even including what they get from taxes. So,
Yep.
and what you're just going to see, I think, with T21 is they're going to have to raise taxes on the cigarette products and probably on vaping products because you're losing, this age is 18, 19, 20. You're losing all those people that would have been smoking, and you're losing all that tax revenue.
And that's one thing. You mentioned taxes in New York. It was Matthew Salter that I was talking with at one point in time that reminded me, because I'm clueless because I live in Ohio. The reservations sell their own cigarettes, and those are not taxed by the state.
Yep.
So he said they're already losing money from raising taxes or doing things because people are now going to a reservation and buying their cigarettes. And now they're going to be doing this, and they're going to be losing even more money to the tune over years of hundreds of millions of dollars in lost tax revenue alone.
Yep.
And then the money from the master settlement agreement goes down and down and down. And they've already invested in their tobacco bonds and everything else like that. But we could sit and we could have a conversation about that all night, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. And it's amazing, too, because I don't get like Democrats right now, okay? And it's not just because I work at a right-wing think tank. My coworkers probably say I'm more of a liberal one than anything. But, Democrats are the biggest anti-smoking zealots, and they put so much barriers on stuff. But the thing is, they represent the lower economic, overwhelmingly. And overwhelmingly, it's lower economic people who smoke. So their whole... I look at these people and I'm like, you guys not get this? Look at this politician and what they're doing. They want you to keep smoking, but they're telling you it's bad because they're relying on your money. It's not, I have to go through some of the numbers, but I don't even know what state, I don't think any state puts even 50%, has reached even 50% of the Center for Disease Control target on what you should be spending on cessation and prevention and education programs. Okay. And it's all going towards other freaking things. And it's like, it just pisses me off because then every year they just turn around and we'll just increase the tax. Well, city of Chicago and Illinois, they increased the tax. It was for Medicaid, and it came up significantly short than what they were expecting it to come up because, the smoking rate has fallen nationally. I think it was 18, I think, and what year was it? 2014, and then it's now down to 15% or something. So, so they're relying, governments rely on tobacco as much, and Democrats and Republicans alike rely on it. They look at that money every year, and then they look at where can we put it in? What can we use? What pension can we go put it in? What service programs, the things they actually have to do versus, no, we're not going to do cessation. We're not going to give it to, counties to, promote, anything. Well, promote harm reduction, but they won't do that. The local counties actually hate harm reduction unless it's Nicorette.
See, you talk about that, and it's another salient point in my thinking because other people, again, have mentioned it. You never hear the FDA talk about harm reduction.
No.
You don't hear them say, well, Gottlieb at one point said, well, if we could get everybody to transition over to, okay, why don't you talk about that a little bit more, meaning the FDA? Why aren't they saying more?
I don't know. And that's another thing with the opioid crisis that I'm looking at some of these really weird parallels. But when you were looking at congressional hearings in 2000, the big point that the Pain Foundation, which was the lobbying group that really pushed these pills, was, there's 39 million people in pain. We have to take care of them. You never hear about the 40 million smokers, ever. Never. Nobody talks about them. Nobody talks about we need to do something from them, and then the concept of harm reduction. We have harm reduction for, sex and condoms. San Francisco, man, when they banned flavors, but then a syringe clinic, it was oh my God, this is so backwards. I think that the dialogue is so messed up right now because everyone associates it with big tobacco. I mean, and it's unfortunate because I was doing my research and I noticed in 2010 when the FDA was issuing warning letters to vaping companies, these were small companies that like Johnson Creek was on it, was one of them, and then 2018, their warning letters are now all the big tobacco players. And then Juul was the outlier on that one. Well, now Altria's got a 35% stake in it. So they kind of, it doesn't really help. But I don't think personally, from some of the conversations I've had with people in the industry, I think big tobacco actually looked at it like it was a gimmick. They waited for also the lawsuit because, they got sued by the FDA and blocked and waited. And it wasn't until like 2010, I think, when they were allowed to, be on the market and FDA could regulate them as tobacco products. It wasn't until 2012 that one of the big tobacco companies actually even brought an e-cigarette to the market, like a real one. I know Reynolds had brought one like years ago, but it just had really bad, poor results or something. And I don't necessarily think that big tobacco is wrong for doing that because I think they're realizing that people are moving to this. People want, the cigarette consumers wanted a safer product. They created a safer product, and big tobacco had to follow suit. Unfortunately, because they're so bad and their history is so malicious and everything, it's all getting a bad rep. And I think that it's just, once again, it's a lack of information, it's a lack of communication, and it's stupid news media stories that don't really know anything about it. Sorry for the rant.
Yeah, you're right. They're getting a rap for it, and as I said, when Juul came in, it created a paradigm shift in how the public viewed things. And then, of course, all of the... I can never remember what their actual acronym stands for. CTFK. I call them tobacco fried chicken crap. Because it is. They push a false narrative. Somebody... See, these are the things, and I know somebody in the chat group would be able to say it. Bill Tarling would probably be able to point it out. There was a gentleman, I believe yesterday or the day before, that had like this huge, ungodly 6,700 word response to what the FDA is doing and why everything that they're saying is shit. Literal. And one of the biggest ones was the word epidemic. Epidemic is something that you kind of hold in reserve for AIDS, for
Oxycontin,
massive worldwide outbreak, a pandemic. That's another one. What are they going to say next? It has become a nicotine pandemic. Bullshit.
Yep.
But the use of the wording that they use is all geared just to get mom and pop, soccer mom, the people that don't smoke, they don't vape, they don't care. They're so tired of hearing about this stuff now, just like I did. Here comes this article out in the local newspaper, and it went viral. And I'm like, yes, that's awesome, until I listened and I understood, no, this is not good, because now this is segregating out one thing and finding it and saying everything else is good. So I'm listening to all of these things that are going on, and it just irritates me. And yet the Juul in the product itself, along with Juno or other compatible pod systems, may well be one of the items that a smoker picks up and uses religiously, just like you. And when I first started, I was dual user big time until I grew accustomed to, and I think there are a lot of people that are. Few people would stand up and go, yes, I'm a dual user. They don't want to get, bitch slapped about it.
I get crap for it, but I'm all about transparency, so.
Well, let me ask you, and this just because I'm curious more than anything, what stops you from switching over to a vapor product altogether? And I'm asking simply because I'm curious.
I still love cigarettes. I mean, I don't, and especially if I'm drinking, the vaping does not help at all. And and you just want a real cigarette. But I know, like when I have to go somewhere and I can't smoke for like a bunch of hours, and all I'm doing is vaping or something, like I'll go and smoke a cigarette, and it's disgusting. So I just gotta get to that one. I just love cigarettes. I'm like, I know I need to quit and actually completely transition over, but I'll get there. That's the goal for this year.
Oh, yeah.
Please don't hate me, unless viewers.
No, everyone that you're smoking less is one that you're not having, and that's tobacco harm reduction.
Yep.
And
exactly.
there is a store manager. Her name is Michelle, and she's one of my favorite people, and I talk about her all the time. She was the same way. She used to love smoking. In the morning, in the evening, after dinner. It's a social thing. It is, you go outside with friends, you have a smoke. It is so ingrained into your life that sometimes it's difficult to say, I want to disassociate.
Yep.
You know, now, for people that are dual users, I will tell you, it was difficult for my wife and I because we would go out of the house to have a smoke.
Yeah.
And it was the time that we got away from the kids. It was just her and I mostly standing and talking, and we related things that were going on during the day.
Yep.
You know, so it took us time to learn
Yep.
how to break some of these chains and some of these habits.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, smoking is a very personal, I think, relationship that people have with their smokes. You know, I mean, we all know that they're bad for us. I mean, this whole idea that, like, kids are going to go pick up cigarettes, I think it's stupid. I think the kids around today are completely disgusted by cigarettes. I think it's great that they are, and everything. But I think, and I love what to think about vaping and the personalization. I think it really helps for these people who do have the intimate relationship with their cigarettes, that they can change it with a device that they can customize. There's more options than there ever was for, tobacco cigarettes, at least in my lifetime. So, I mean, I think that, and I think too, I mean, people got to quit. Don't discourage people from being a dual user. I mean, I know a lot of, when I first got it, I got a lot of flack because when I first started, I was a cigarette smoker. I started Heartland. They're like, oh, you smoke cigarettes? Go work on vaping. And I really got into it because this whole industry, I mean, I studied government, and this industry is one of the most unique industries because they have faced the government from the local, state, and federal levels. I mean, and every other day there's just another attack on them and everything.
Very
and I
much.
really find it's a unique industry and they know so much about government that they probably don't even want to know about it. But and I got a lot of flack for being a cigarette smoker, but I have transitioned. I'm a dual user, and it'll be this. My boyfriend keeps harping on it, and my coworker. I call him my work husband, Matt. We were on a trip together, and he kept yelling at me every time I went and smoked a cigarette. So I was like, I don't quit. But like, I was in Missouri's capital, and they have actually a smoking room in the garage of their capital, which is, like you said, there are certain situations that there's a kind of camaraderie, among smokers, especially when you're kind of forced to go sit in one place by yourselves, and everything.
Yep.
So. But there were people vaping in there. I asked the guy I was like, did you quit smoking using that? And he's like, yes. He's like, I haven't smoked in 78 days. I was like, good. That's awesome. That's the stuff that I like to hear.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that I like when vapors will take that time to go stand next to a pack of smokers, because they do. We traveled in packs when we were like that. And they turn around and they'll vape, and people will look at them and say, well, I heard that was really bad for you. Actually, no, this is good. And they begin to tell their story.
Yeah.
And they tell them, I don't wheeze anymore, and I don't have this problem, and I don't have that. And it inadvertently somewhere helps somebody else make another choice of, maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what it's all about.
Yep, I know, and I think it's great too. I mean, when a vapor goes and goes and sits with the smokers instead of 10 feet away from them because they can't stand the smell now, and that's
it's hard.
Bell Hicks got this joke about quitting smoking. He's like, you non-smokers are the whiniest and complain the most. He's like, I quit smoking, but I don't want to become one of you. And
it's hard. Here's an odd question. In looking at this Excel sheet, and I'm seeing, and I went back and my eyes just keep going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Have you heard any group, and I'm not saying a state advocate group, let's talk about maybe a group that is helping push T21 or push taxes or push whatever. Have you heard any of them trying to get together with another group to throw vaping under the bus in the same way that they did with Cole Bishop, the cigar company?
Not really. I haven't seen anything. I work with the people, though, that are on the other side that are fighting that one. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that come up. I mean, I think that Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids has done a very good job at making this alarmism that people are fearing vaping. And when you got people like Stan Glantz coming out and sitting here saying that, oh, you might as well be smoking, it's just as bad for you. I mean, it doesn't do any good. It's a big disservice and very big misinformation. I still just am amazed that like we're not listening to Public Health England and we're not listening to the Royal College of Physicians when we relied so heavily on them for our 1964 Surgeon General report on smoking. And I always, the big joke now is like, the English have different lungs than Americans do or something. So I mean, it's just. But I mean, there is a concerted effort, and they are latching on to the children. I mean, if you look at the industry. E-cigarettes first came out. They're dangerous. Is all it was coming out. They're dangerous. They're not safer for you. Well, science disproved that, right? Okay. Then the next narrative was, oh, they don't help you quit. Well, the vapors disproved that one. So now the narrative is, oh, the kids. We got to do something about the kids. And it's unfortunate because. In 2016, kids were vaping, and they were vaping nicotine, actually. I read that study that they found it. It was the University of Michigan had done it. That they were vaping, but it was overwhelmingly they had zero nicotine, and they were vaping for flavors. So it was now with the new pod systems or whatnot that you're having this youth uptake and everything. But I don't even think it's as alarming as everyone's making it out to be. But they do have when you bring a little kid out on to the House floor to go sit there and testify, everybody's going to sit in that room and listen to this little kid. And it really does pull on the heartstrings. So to speak.
And that kills me. These kids have. I'm not going to sit here and say they have been told what to say, but when they talk about what they want to say, and you have an authoritative figure adult, going, well, so the kid doesn't say that, but when they say something that the adult likes, yeah, that's really good. Well, of course the kid is going to sit and tailor what they're saying so they get praise, for lack of better words.
Yep. Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, and you're a kid. I'm sorry. I know how I was a stupid 17-year-old. I thought I knew everything too, and but I'm still amazed that these kids are just like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of freedom. I'm a big fan of having my options to do things. Maybe that's because I studied government, and I see so much of overregulation and overreaching in this whole nanny state. I mean, I live in Illinois. It's one of the biggest nanny states. Okay. I mean, and so I'm still amazed that I'm looking at these kids and I'm like, oh my God, is this what we're going to look with? I mean, these are going to be the politicians or, the people representing us in 20 years. And I'm like, oh my God, where are we going? Oh my God. This is going to be very, very bad.
It's going to be horrendous as it goes along because they're gaining traction. And if New York turns around and they get any kind of traction in what they're doing. And from what I heard, from what I read online, during the open testimony, it looked like they had already made up their mind. That they were just sitting, they might as well have been playing Yahtzee for all the good they were doing. Now, hopefully, and I'm hoping and praying, that some of what people said really sunk in for them. And that's my hope. I'm not sure if that is actually true.
I don't know, because they don't listen. They listen. When I was in Washington State, they had this health department guy that, he put there's formaldehyde in there. One of the legislators had asked, they're like, are there ones that have zero nicotine? And the guy kind of tap danced around the question. He's like, well, they say they have zero nicotine. And he's like, no, are there ones that have zero nicotine? And they're like, well, yeah. And that's like, okay. Then the public health groups, it's amazing for them to be so anti-vaping when you're supposed to be promoting public health. And this is safer. The only reason I could sit here, I know for a fact Center for Tobacco Products is completely funded by user fees. I found that the whole thing. I could share it online with everybody. That's from a congressional budget or the CPO, the report. That I was like, I found that. I was like, that is fantastic to know. Because of course you would be against vaping because your whole center is going to go if everybody quits smoking and goes to vaping. I think the whole issue is going to end up coming down, though, is that, there's going to have to be some form of taxation on this, and I don't agree with it. I think that electronic cigarettes, vaping devices, smokeless tobacco, even Nicorette, they should be regulated on the continuum of harm that they, the risk that they pose. Sure, tax the hell out of cigarettes, okay? We got that, but don't be mad when people go and out to these other products and don't turn around and take that tax and put it on these products because you're trying to make up the lost funding. It's asinine. This is no other way to put it. It's increasingly frustrating every single day as we move forward, especially, the deeming regulations. I know what HPHCs are due this year. And they gave them a little bit of an extension time, but that time, 2022, that's going to come quickly. And it's just I'm afraid for the whole industry when that does happen. I'm afraid for the industry next year and see who makes it out of this latest round of, regulations that they have to comply with. But
the HPHC.
The HPHCs. Yeah, that's just, I'm like, oh my God, and I know a lot of people are like, who are paying attention to it are like, yeah, I think there's some people that are like, I don't care. And I'm curious if there's companies out right now that didn't even get their product listings and their ingredients last year. I'm pretty sure there are some of them that,
See, now I'm of two thoughts of all of that right now. And I'll briefly just talk about it. There was a reply made by a gentleman by the name of Ian Firth in a group that I follow. And he said, you go all the way back when they came out, 8/8/16. And he said we had to have certain things done, like bottle, child-resistant labels and GCCs and everything that he listed going through. And you had to register with the FDA, and then you had to update your labels, and you had to upload your labels, and then you had to put the nicotine warning on your label, and now it's going to... But every time he listed something, he said, this was not enforced. This, not enforced, not enforced, not enforced. And he said, HPHC is going to be the same thing. It's not going to be enforced.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of me that might agree with that until I kind of... In the last show, I spoke with a lot of people, and I heard when it does become enforced, it was not a question of if. Yeah. It became a question of when.
Yep.
And when it is, people are going to lose everything. They'll lose their house, their car, their bank accounts. Everything that was attached to that business is going to go out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's people need to pay attention. The HPHC... Yes, it is a prerequisite for the PMTA process, yet it is something that must happen in order to remain on the market. And from my understanding, it is stipulated in the 8/8/16 paperwork. It says you have to meet this criteria.
Yep.
So when we get to November of this year, and many people have said it before me, you're going to see before that in the later part of summer. Mass sell-off, fire sales, and the industry is going to begin to implode.
Yeah.
It makes me sick.
It's very unfortunate, because if it doesn't get done, you're only pretty much leaving it open to the big tobacco companies to have their products on the market. And frankly, they're not for everybody. Yes, Juul, that works for some people. I'm using a Juul, but some people can't stand it. And I can tell you, the only flavor I like by Juul is their cucumber one. Everything else tastes like crap. All right, that mango, yuck. The berry one, even more disgusting. So, I really want to see IQOS out personally as a Juul user. I think the heat not burn system is fantastic. I think that would be one of the best things to get people to really transition. I don't know. There's some. It's not as, once again, it's on a continuum of harm. I think e-cigarettes are a little bit safer, or more safer than that product, but I do think that it's significantly safer than combustible cigarettes. But it's, I don't like it when companies do stuff like that. I think, first of all, you already have a bad rep from the news media as being associated with big tobacco, being sneaky, doing dirty things behind closed doors. If you're not being compliant, you are just feeding into that image that you have. Even if they're not enforcing it, so what? It's do it. It's not, it's like, shoplifting. I don't know. It's have a moral compass or something, and don't burn the whole, because it takes just one bad player for the whole industry to go down. look at Juul. Look at everything with related to Juul. Okay, it's one thing, and it did completely revolutionize and change the whole vaping landscape. And it's unfortunate the way that it went, because I remember reading a 2015 Wired article that called it like the electronic cigarette of the century. I mean, that it was a game-changing, device. And so it's unfortunate, that their youth use and with the Juul and everything, and how alarming it is. I think they're doing some restrictions. I think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to try to, impact or, lessen youth using their product. But yeah, once again, it just takes one bad player, and if you be compliant. I mean, like I know it sucks. I can't imagine. I know a couple of people on the board were doing ingredients listings, last year, and they were just miserable. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine that right now. But it's necessary. You need to have some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. It just makes you look better. It doesn't destroy you. Being compliant makes you look professional. It makes you look like you do care. And I don't know why it should be would be difficult for anybody, but I've always looked at most of the people I know, and so that I've talked to with, that are retailers or liquid manufacturers, they're in the business of helping vapor or helping smokers quit. I've never really seen anybody that they're passionate about this. I've never really met somebody that's like, I'm just going to get rich quick. Now I know there's some of them. I don't know exactly who they are, but I know the ones that I talk to, and I feel that it's terrible that like one bad egg is going to ruin it for everybody.
It is. It is becoming a catch-all. And unfortunately, Dimitri Agrafiotis wrote an article, and he stipulated Juul is not the entire vaping industry. And the public unfortunately doesn't distinguish between Juul and mod. They say vaping, and they see what they've seen on TV a million times, and it's a Juul. And they say nicotine epidemic. And when they think that, they think vaping, and anybody that vapes has got to be, so it's this blanket bullshit that we're having to put up with all over the place. It's horrible. Okay, do me two things, because we're getting ready to run out of time, believe it or not. An hour goes by too quick sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Out of that entire Excel sheet, and I'm going to pull it back up so that people can see it just real quick one more time, if I can get there. Oh, this is so ironic. Okay. Out of this entire Excel sheet, is there anything in particular on here that scares the hell out of you?
Rhode Island's got a 40% wholesale tax. That scares me, actually, because you saw what happened in Pennsylvania. The V21, so that is, let me go to it. You got one in Iowa and one in Nebraska. So the one in Nebraska, that's LB 149. And it also has a clean indoor air on it with it too, including vaping into that. And then the Iowa's one is Senate File 66. And yeah, it makes vaping products 21, but you can still get combustible cigarettes at 18. I think that's just ridiculous. Massachusetts has a 75% wholesale tax as well. The taxes are the ones that really go. Another one too is, I think that I know VTA is working on it, but legislation that, Skip Murray actually brought it up, and it was a very valid point that there's a lot of states that do not have regulations right now on vaping products. And once again, I'm a free market person. I hate the government. Okay. Sticking it to the man and everything. But at the same time, I do think there needs to be regulations in place. So you have some, so you can check your bad actors, your vape shops that are selling to minors are, the ones that are making their liquids in their bathtub, though we might be forced to do that soon. Make sure that they're not getting regulated as tobacco products, and making sure that, that your legislators understand that they're not tobacco products. And especially the Democrats is the ones you really need to just target and go into. And I know they're so hard to read. I can't really do much work. Okay. The Democrats hate the Heartland Institute too. I don't even think, they read my emails when I send them out. I do send them it. So they're getting a lot of information from me, whether they choose to listen to it or not. But I think, the V21s in Nebraska and Iowa's the big one, and then the taxes are the ones that you need to really watch. And then the flavor bans. because flavor bans will completely, completely screw the whole thing over, especially in the state. And I don't even get how they're going to do it. I don't even know if they can do a flavor ban. I know that's what one of the, and then online. Some of the states are going to do some online restrictions, and I don't even think they can do that because states can't regulate interstate commerce. So you can't. They're lofty ideas, but I think they're going to get turned down in court somewhere. So
they're going to have a lot of problem. There was one place that I heard that, if I'm not mistaken, they are presenting like a 90-some% wholesale tax in some state.
I have to go see that. I haven't seen that yet.
I know somebody in the chat room will be able to bring it up and talk about it.
Let me know that one because I'll have to add it to my. Yeah, I still have to. I've been busy, so I haven't updated this list, but I will have a new updated version by the end of this week, so that we can share with everybody. Just so nobody's surprised. I mean, there's this stuff. I mean, I know Minnesota changed some law that there's really no transparency now, that they can have a committee hearing that they don't even have to give you like 24 hours notice or something like that. And I think you're going to see some slick things going on with these to get them kind of pushed in slyly.
That's going to be decent. All right. Tell me, if you would, a couple of things. Where can people find you as well as finding your podcast?
Okay, so podcast is on. It is on iTunes, so you can just go look. It's got its own little channel, Voices of Vapors. You can also just go on Heartland.org, and under the multimedia tab, there's going to be a podcast, and you go down, and then you'll see all of our podcasts. There is a search part. If you just type in Voices of Vapors, all of those will come up, and then all the information on the research that I've done and the op-eds and everything is going to be under the alcohol and tobacco page at heartland.org, so you can see all that. And if anybody needs any help or anything, writing a letter to their legislator, or just research to give to their legislators, I can help you out with it, make it state specific. I've covered legislation, I think, in all 50 states, but I've covered
huge.
A lot.
That is huge, folks that are watching. We're going to be listening to this later. If you need help getting information together to present to a legislator, give her a call.
Let me know.
Get in touch with her.
We wrote, me and Dr. Radu in 2016 published vaping, e-cigarettes, vaping, and public policy solutions, or something. It's such a long title, and I've got copies of that. It's designed for state legislators. So when you open it up, it has the policy solutions as the first page, and then kind of just goes through tobacco harm reduction. If you want copies of that, I can mail them out to you. I mean, and if you need a research and commentary done, I can do that as well. Like I said, that's a one page analysis on the legislation. I bring up the points of why it's bad. So the Tobacco 21 always kind of has the same argument that it doesn't deter youth usage. You have no, look at how many kids are drinking, and then the fact that you're not using tobacco funding. So I actually go through and find out how much your state has done tobacco funding at. So, and they all suck. They don't fund anything. So,
mm-hmm.
And you can just, you can email me at it's lstroud, LSTROUD at heartland.org is my email. So, and
that is perfect. And now, is there anything that they would need, or can they find other material for THR for Life?
THR for Life, you can go on our, we're active on our Facebook page. We're also working on trying to get the website up and running, but it's just thrforlife.org. And then the Facebook page is probably the better one to do. Skip does a lot of that, and we're all very responsive. So if you have any questions, just shoot us a message on Facebook, and we'll get back to you. And if you need any, we do have T21 shirts. If you want, some of those, let us know. We'll happy to go out into a hearing, because you'll go to hearings and they're in a way, a sea of whatever color shirt that tobacco control people want to be. So it's nice that if you have a consistent wave of people who are. You got a shirt, we got a shirt,
That's fantastic. Lindsey, I appreciate you taking time this evening to join me and to be able to talk. And I know that when she gets the information together, when she gets this updated for all the legislation is going through, we'll make sure to get that all passed out or make some couple of posts about it. But there's so much information that is on there. It's incredible, just incredible, eye-opening.
Yeah,
is an easy way.
It's scary. I mean, it's just.
It did. It scared the hell out of me when I opened it up. I started scrolling through this. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's just, it is. It's scary material. People need to wake up and see. We're in the 11th and a half hour, folks.
Yeah.
There's no more time to waste.
Yep, and that doesn't even include the federal legislation. So, I mean, it's just going to be, it's going to be a battle this year. We kind of knew it last year going into this year that we knew, especially when you got the head of the FDA calling it an epidemic and then the Surgeon General going crazy on Twitter. The states what do? They respond. So, and that's what they're doing. And it's unfortunate, too, with the Tobacco 21 because, Republicans are supporting it right now. And I'm like, okay, wow, I thought you guys were all for personal choice. And I just hate Tobacco 21. I also don't agree with drinking 21, quite honestly. If you're 18, you can go try it as an adult. You'd be found guilty and executed, okay? But you can't smoke a cigarette or have a drink. I think it's just kind of bullshit, quite honestly. Don't expect people to be an adult and restrict access to adult products.
There's
dumb.
A lot of people that are feeling the exact same way.
Yep.
At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, Lindsey Stroud, part of the Heartland Institute, also part of Tobacco Harm for Life, Tobacco Harm Reduction for Life, THR for Life.
Yep.
Thank you so much for taking time this evening. I know, and when I saw that you were traveling and just getting back, I'm like, oh shit, maybe she's not going to have time.
I wasn't in communication that well. I was meant to text you this morning. Be like, I'm still good. I'm good. I made it back to Chicago. We'll be on.
And it's been fantastic. I really appreciate it. At some point, I want to have you back on the show to where we can kind of neck down and narrow down and focus on just a couple of things that are happening.
Yeah,
because an hour is so short sometimes. But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, Lindsey Stroud, I appreciate you joining me this evening. And for everybody else that is out there, I will see you again next week on another edition of Vaping in the Mic.